Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'm going to be doing a review for the new Lillie's deck that's coming around in Journey Together. So, before we start, sadly, the Lillie's deck just looks to be pretty bad, basically. It just doesn't look very good. I don't think Lillie got the right amount of support, really, as far as trainers are concerned. I don't think Arano got enough support either, but to be honest, I think Lillie was definitely the worst of the trainers. So, yeah. It's a bit of a shame, I was a huge fan of Nebby when I played through Sun and Moon, so I'm a bit sad to see Nebby absent from the trainers lineup. But yeah, a bit of a shame with Lillie's Pokemon. However, Clefairy EX is a great card, like it just is. So the deck itself is based around benching a lot of Lillie's Pokemon to then attack with Clefairy. So it's like a very, very simple concept. However, it's just not a very good archetype. Like, you're just not doing enough damage. The other Pokemon are a bit weak. Like, they're not really contributing anything. So yeah, it's a bit naff really. But the Clefairy certainly looks like it could be a nice option for Charizard, maybe. Probably the most competitive way to play it as we go forward in the TCG. So if you're expecting more of a Lillie kind of focused deck in standard, then you might be hard pushed. Now, we will look at some lists later on in the video that do feature Lillie's Clefairy X more prominently, but I do think as a niche one-off, that's going to be the best way to use it, basically. But yeah, the main pie slices, assuming you wanted to build an actual straight-up just Lillie's deck, I wouldn't recommend this. I don't think this is very good. Even with the likes of Area Zero in here and, like Ogapon and stuff, like, I just don't think it's going to be very good. But 3 to 4 Lillie's Clefairy EX, 3, maybe 4 Lillie's Comfey, just because it says search your deck for any number of basic Lillie's Pokemon and put them onto your bench, which is obviously quite nice when you're starting up. But other than that, it's a bit useless. Like, you're not going to use Fade Out. So, like, yeah, it's a bit rubbish. Lillie's Pearl is honestly a really good card as well. That's a tool card. If the Lillie's Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's Pokemon's attack, your opponent has to take one fewer prize card, which is great. It just turns Lillie's Clefairy X into a single prize Pokemon, which for 190 HP and also hitting weakness on Dragon types is pretty cool. So Lillie's Pearl is definitely a great card. It's just not really enough to carry this as its own deck. Also got Lillie's Ribombee, which might honestly be the worst defender. It says when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during a turn, you may have your opponent reveal their hand and put any number of basic Pokemon you find there onto their bench. Like, gaining some intel of your opponent's hand, like what's going on in there, maybe you find some basics, maybe you don't, but at least you get to look at your opponent's hand. But to be honest, I just don't think that's enough to really warrant wasting an evolution and a bench slot at that point. Like, I know you need to fill up the bench for, Full Moon Rondo to do enough damage, but at the same time, I just don't think Lillie's Ribombee is particularly great. It does have a nice pre-release promo, so that's cool, but aside from that, yeah, this just honestly doesn't look like a very good deck to play. But other attackers or options, we've got the Teal Mass Ogerpon with Energy Switch, and we'll look at a list like shortly just after this, really. But I do think Teal Mass Ogerpon might be one of the best partners for it if you just want to play like a fundamental Lillie's Full Moon Rondo style deck and not, focus on Charizard or whatever. So, Teal Mass Ogerpon, pretty cool. Also got Xatu as a nice option because it's not only contributing to your bench space, but it's also accelerating Psychic Energy, and it's also drawing you cards. So you get 3 for the price of 1 basically with Xatu. So much, much better than Ribombee in my opinion. So yeah, Xatu, very, very strong. Also got Accompanying Flute here, which is basically just Ribombee's ability, but you look at the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck instead of their hand, basically. So your opponent has less control over what basics are stacked on their deck. Maybe they can try and get all the basics out of their deck anyway. But for the most part, you do have a higher chance at least of getting stuff from the top of their deck than their hand typically. So yeah, I do quite like Accompanying Flute in this list. Honestly, it looks pretty strong. As for the best A spec, good question. Like, I would say Secret Box, but like, you don't really have a dedicated stadium. That's another thing Lillie didn't get, was the dedicated stadium. Like, the tool card is pretty obvious. You just get the Pearl. The item card, yeah, sure, Nest Ball, I guess. Supporter cards, who knows? It's like one of those weird situations. Precious Trolley might honestly not be that bad, just because, of course, you're filling up the bench for Precious, not Precious, Full Moon Rondo, that's the one. And then Prime Catcher gives you some alternative Gust options, which is quite cool. As for other A specs, I don't really think any spring to mind. Like, maybe there's some more items that are pretty good, or like that weird balloon thing that does a ton of damage in retaliation. But aside from that, I don't think there's great A-Spec choices really for this deck. Maybe Precious Trolley is just flat out the best A-Spec. But yeah, this was the 11th place list from the City League Chiba. This was quite a while ago, so chances are you've already seen this list. But this was a Lily's Ogerpon list that did pretty well. It's honestly quite cool, this one. It reminds me a lot of Terrapagos, but of course Terrapagos is a bit weaker post-rotation because there's no double turbo. So if you're a fan of Terrapagos and you like Lily's Pokemon, then, you'll feel right at home with this. A 3 split of both Lily's Pokemon of Clefairy and then Ogerpon, and then a 2-2 line of Noctowl, 1 Pheasantipity, 1 Squawk, 1 Latias, 1 Mew EX, 1 Iron Bundle, and then 1 Phantom Rotom, just as an extra poker, really, and also helps you get set up with some Noctowls. But yeah, honestly looks pretty strong. I do like the inclusion of Judge as well, which you can afford to use. But yeah, you're kind of based around using Energy Switch, really. You're very reliant on it for some energy acceleration, which I think is a little bit dodgy, especially considering you're only running 3 Psychic Energy. Again, it feels a bit dodgy. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this, but could definitely see why it would be pretty good in the end. So I'm kind of keen to try this one out, but I do think Sark 2 might honestly just be the better deck overall, but we'll have to see though. Then this was a Charizard Dragapult Pidgeot list, so already quite a lot going on in here, but it does make room for a single copy of Clefairy's EX. Pretty cool, so if you're just a fan of Charizard Dragapult decks in general, like maybe just one or the other, then Clefairy is quite nice and easy to slot into. More so Dragapult than Charizard, I would say, just because Dragapult's still using Psych Energy, Clefairy needs Psychic, very simple synergy there. Charizard's a bit more awkward, but at least you can get it charged up in one turn with the ability, then you just have to find a Psychic Energy in order to attack with it. So still a nice single prize, well, 2 prize option if you don't have the tool card, but still a nice option for an attacker, and kind of like Entei V, I guess. It's kind of fulfilling that role. You just don't get the Forest Seal Stone anymore, though. But yeah, still a very cool combo, though, and definitely can compensate for the lack of other basic powerful attackers, pretty much. Yeah, because we lose Entei to rotation, which is a bit rough for Charizard. But yeah, then this next list is a Gardevoir build. So if you all thought Gardevoir was going away post-rotation, then think again. But yeah, Gardevoir always seems to find a way to survive rotation. Then, of course, we're getting the Mega Gardevoir some point this year. I think we're getting it in like August, September time, apparently, which is, yeah, a lot sooner than I thought we were getting it. But yeah, apparently that's when we're getting the Mega Gardevoir. But I'm kind of rambling on a bit at this point. Gardevoir EX, it's looks the same, really. There's nothing that different. I guess you're more reliant on Rare Candy, I suppose, because you're not really using TM Evolution anymore. But yeah, still pretty cool. Also running a Tatsuguri, which is inspired. I do like Tatsuguri a lot, so that's cool to see. Also running 1 Lily's Pearl, so you could up this count if you wanted to play maybe more Clefairy, for example. So that's quite fun. But yeah, honestly, there's not a lot really to say about Lily's Clefairy. This is kind of like why I waited so long before really doing this video, because I didn't want to do it without any lists to talk about, because unlike the Ends Pokemon, unlike the Hops Pokemon, and even Iono, there's just so little to talk about here. It's just kind of like they gave a lot of attention to Hop and N, and then for Iono, they were like, okay, here's 1 or 2 things to work with, and then they kind of gave up, it feels like, when they got to Lily. So it's a bit of a shame, and yeah, I do sort of feel like Misty's is getting the similar treatment in the next set, Destined Rivals, just because there's only 1 deck to be built out of it, and it's the Gyarados deck, and it's a bit of a meme. But all that aside, this still looks pretty fun, and I could definitely see this being a pretty good partner for Charizard or Dragapult, or maybe even Gardevoir. So yeah, let me know what you think of Lily's Pokemon down below. Are you excited to try them out? And yeah, thank you for watching.